Welcome to the Robert Lewis Sermon Podcast. The following is a session from Men's Fraternity. We hope that you're encouraged in your walk with Christ and enjoy this episode.
I want to welcome you to what I hope will be for you a great adventure, where we're going to be probing and exploring and uncovering, and for some of you guys, we're going to be unraveling what a man is, what a man can be, what a man should be, what a man must be on certain occasions if he's going to feel a sense of real masculinity within himself. You know, there are a lot of guys that don't feel that way. There are a lot of guys that inside they just feel like they're drifting. And one of the things that's been so exciting about this particular opportunity that I've had to be with men over the last 10 years is to see guys find a center, not out here, but inside themselves. Begin to find a place that they can stand a lot firmer and clearer and surer about who they are as men. And you know, something wonderful happens when a guy finds that. He becomes a force to be reckoned with when he's clear about who he is and clear about where he's going. And what we're going to be talking about this year is where we're going as men. We're calling it the Great Adventure. And are you ready for the Great Adventure? I hope you are. You know, Bill was asking for a show of hands for some of you who've been to Men's Fraternity 1, Men's Fraternity 2, and so on and so forth. Just for a moment, I'd like to see a show of hands. How many guys have never been through Men's Fraternity? I just want to see this is your first time. No, is this your first time to go through Men's Fraternity? All right? Just keep your hand up. Gosh, that's just incredible that you're starting out with us. And I think for the rest of us, I think we ought to give you a round of applause for joining with us. You know, a number of years ago, I stumbled into this because some men came to me and they just said, you know, we just feel like we need to get together. We feel disconnected. And so I asked them why they felt that way, and there was a lot of kind of different comments, but nothing real clear. And one of the guys in the group said, you know, I just would like to get with some other guys to be real. You know, kind of like we did when we were back in the fraternity. Well, I was in a fraternity in college, and I'm not sure I want to go back there. But I think what he was trying to tell me was that, you know, you finish college and you get out in the work world, and there are all these forces at work there, and slowly, though you have a lot of superficial relationships, somehow you find yourself one day in a place where you're alone with your feelings and your thoughts and your dreams and your ambitions and your fears. And somehow the world has caused you to put this mask on where you can talk about golf and you can talk about the Razorbacks and you can talk about business deals, but you can't talk about you. And so where can you go to do that? And I think that is really what started the success of this particular ministry opportunity that we've had in the community, because we started with, you know, about 50 guys over on Markham at the Razorback Gym years ago, just talking about different subjects. And then we eventually got to this issue of what it means to be a man. And all of a sudden, more and more men every year started coming. First a couple of hundred, then 300, then 400. And a couple of years ago, 700. Is that not amazing? But let me tell you, as amazing as it is it says something. It makes a statement about the state of masculinity in our country. It says that men are hungry to get together and talk about what it means to be a man. It means that men need some sense of direction. They need to explore their masculinity and who they are and what they are and where they're going. And that's what we're going to do this year. In fact, I want to tell you that Men's Fraternity basically will do three things for you. Here's the first one. The first thing it's going to do, it's going to be a place where you can talk openly, and I want to say openly and safely, about what it means to be a man. It's real important that we have a place where we can talk openly and safely. You know, every year when we finish Men's Fraternity, we kind of take a survey of what the guys experienced when they went through this year together. And one of the things that comes out of every year that I think is so important is men will tell me this. They'll say, I discovered I'm not alone. I'm not alone in my feelings, in my fears, in my sense of what I'm dealing with. You know, I thought I was all alone. Everybody else looked like they're doing great. I asked Joe how he's doing. He said, fine. Everybody says fine. But there are things in me that are not so necessarily fine and things I don't really even understand. And so men's fraternity, as I listen to other guys talk in my small group, they help me understand I'm not alone. That we're all dealing with the same things. And I want you to know, we all are. We're all dealing with the same issues in life. And we all need encouragement. We all need guys to cheer for us. We all need a sense of companionship where we can talk openly with one another. Guys desperately need that. I need that. Secondly, it's a place where I think over the course of the year, if you'll hang with us through the course of the year, if you'll be a finisher, then what it's going to do is it's going to allow you to personally process your own masculinity. And I think every guy needs that. A lot of us grew up with distant dads, disconnected dads, so we lost something in that. And so we're still in the process maybe of recovering that. Maybe you are. But even if you had a dad who was a strong nurturer and leader, guys still come to a place where they get cast out in the world on their own and they're having to process their masculinity now alone. So they need a place where they can go and connect with other guys to begin that process. I want you to know that's here. That's here in a small group. That's here in the lectures. That's here just in the friendships that will be formed over the course of this year. And it's also a place, if you've been through men's fraternity, you guys know, it's a place where we can come and laugh at ourselves a little bit. It's good to laugh. It's good for the soul. And probably nobody does that better for me. And if you've been in men's fraternity 1 and 2, than Dave Berry. And I thought I'd start off men's fraternity 3 by just reading you a little selection so we could laugh a little bit at ourselves before we go on into the rest of the session here today. In this particular thing that I found, he's just talking about the differences in men and women in regards to their values around the home in cleanliness. Here's what he says. Women and guys have profoundly different concepts of clean. When a woman cleans a bathroom, she will go in there with numerous specialized products and implements for cleansing, scouring, shining, and deodorizing the glass, the porcelain, the tile. She'll spend even hours on the grout. She will eradicate dirt on a molecular level. She will track down and destroy each individual mildew spore. She can actually hear the germs, and she can make them scream. Whereas the guy, if instructed to clean the bathroom, will go in there with a single paper towel and the first spray bottle he finds. It might be Windex or it could even be Raid. He will pay no attention to whether or not he's actually getting the bathroom cleaner because he really believes that when fungal growth reaches a certain size and aggressiveness level, it's time to find a new place to live. And then there's laundry. Let's consider this excerpt from the following letter. Dear Dave, my husband announced one morning that he had discovered the previous night on the eve of a 2-day business trip that he was out of underwear. Why he told me, I don't know. I never tell him when I'm out of underwear. It's true, isn't it, guys? Anyway, he decided to remedy the situation in true guy fashion by washing exactly 3 sets of underwear, thus disregarding the bulging hamper full of the rest of his underwear, which presumably he thought would wash itself. Signed, Allison Schuler from Albuquerque. Dave then says, this is a perfect example of the kind of hurtful, stereotypical blanket statement about guys that women as a group are always making. Just because Mrs. Schuler's husband doesn't do the laundry doesn't mean that there aren't millions upon millions of males who do their laundry and then hang it out to dry under the 3 suns of the planet Zomar, where they obviously live. I will admit, however, that most guys here on earth do not do more laundry than they absolutely have to. Why is this? Are guys simply worthless, irresponsible scum? Yes. But a woman wouldn't let a guy do her laundry anyway unless he underwent years of training because she assumes he'd screw it up and cause her garments to shrink down to cute little Tinkerbell clothes, or transmaterialize in the dryer, similar to what happened to that unfortunate man in the movie The Fly. So she'd wind up, for example, with a brassiere that had pant legs. I'm not defending guys here. I'm just saying that a lot of us have developed a powerful laundry phobia and will continue to suffer from it as long as women roll their eyes and shove us away from the washing machine when we're about to do, for example, wash our delicate silks in the same load as our boat cover. Yes, we guys have a problem in these areas, but it's not our fault. We're talking about nature here. It's a lot like tapeworms. Tapeworms tend to have a negative public image because they are repulsive organisms that get inside people's intestines and eat people's food and grow to lengths of 60 feet. But is it their fault? No, it's their nature. And we guys are no different. In fact, guys are exactly like tapeworms, except in one area. Tapeworms are more likely to help with the dishes. Well, we want to laugh over the course of the year as well. We want to talk about things that make us guys, but most importantly, we want to talk about what makes us men. And I thought maybe just to start us out, we'd do a big picture overview of men's fraternity by giving you just a diagram of orientation. It's there on your outline, and we'll put it up here on the screen. But I want to give you a sense of what men's fraternity is, because it's really a 3-year curriculum. And over that course of 3 years, we're building in a direction. Now, for those of you who are here for the very first time, I want you to know you're in the 3rd year. And this is a whole new men's fraternity this year. Next year, we'll start men's fraternity 1 again and go 1, 2, and 3. But to give you an overview, to give everybody an overview, to kind of bring us up to speed, let's just kind of walk through what the name of men's fraternity 1, 2, and 3 is. Name of men's fraternity 1 was called the Quest for Authentic Manhood. It's kind of a foundational level concerning manhood. Men's fraternity 2 was a man at work and at home, focused on kind of 2 specific areas that predominantly are central to a man's life: his career and his family. Then now here in men's fraternity 3, we're talking about a man in his world. It's what's out beyond that, and it's what's in his future. It's called a man in his great adventure. You know, where the first one was kind of a ground floor, men's fraternity 2 were kind of the walls, and now we're putting the roof on the house of masculinity. The focus of men's fraternity 1 was a man's core identity. It deals with identity issues, just basic kind of concepts. Whereas men's fraternity 2 dealt with a man's responsibilities, his chief responsibilities. And then men's fraternity 3, what you're here in, is a man's destiny. The chief elements in men's fraternity 1 was a man's wounds. It's looking back into his past and looking at the things that maybe misshaped part of his masculinity. And so we do a lot of probing in a man's past in men's fraternity 1. And we give a definition of manhood, a place where guys can finally stand and do what I think most men in America still can't do, and that is, if they were asked the question, what is a man? If you were asked the question, you guys who are here for the very first time, what is a man? Could you give us a succinct, passionate definition of it that you say, that's what I'm living to be? See, most guys can't. Most guys just draw a blank at that point. So men's fraternity 1, we give this definition of manhood, and then we overview some basic manhood issues. Then in men's fraternity 2, the chief elements are how a man enjoys and engages his work in a whole new way. And then secondly, how he successfully relates to a woman, which is a big part of a man's life. And then finally, in this one, men's fraternity 3, what we're going to be doing is rediscovering some of the adventure of life. And we'll talk about why we need to do that here in a moment. But it's understanding also who I am. What are the uniquenesses that I have as a man? So we're going to be talking about design issues, how men are designed, and how you uniquely are designed, and then discovering what I call a satisfying life focus. The major challenge, if you were with us in men's fraternity 1, was this call that we made, the boy must die. Now, if you were in men's fraternity 1, you know what that means. But there comes a place where a man has got to put away childish things. And he's got to move on in his life to what I call real masculine, real manhood issues. So the boy in you must die in Men's Fraternity 1. In Men's Fraternity 2, it's more of the man in you must step forward. Step forward into those areas that are most central to your life. Step forward in the workplace with conviction, a whole different conviction that goes beyond just making a paycheck. It's being a force in the workplace. And then also stepping forward in your home as the leader of your home and how you relate to your wife and to your children, the responsibilities you have there. And then in this particular men's fraternity, what we're doing is the adventurer. We're talking about the adventurer in you must live. Because somewhere along life's path, a lot of guys lose the adventure of life. It just becomes hard. The passion of Men's Fraternity 1 was seizing your manhood. The passion of Men's Fraternity 2 was establishing your manhood. And the passion of this Men's Fraternity 3, is maximizing your manhood. In fact, if you look in that last one on passion, for those of you guys who know the definition of manhood, I really see the real central part of Men's Fraternity 1 is rejecting passivity. You remember that? That's really what Men's Fraternity 1 is. It's finally stepping up and saying, hey, I'm gonna be a man. Men's Fraternity 2 is accepting responsibility, those chief responsibilities. Men's Fraternity 3 is now leading courageously. Not your family and not in the workplace, leading you courageously in this great adventure so that you might receive all that God has for you in this life. And that's why the directives of the three, I'd put them just simply this way. Men's Fraternity 1 is go. Men's Fraternity 2 is fight. And Men's Fraternity 3 is win. Go, fight, and win in life as a man. Now, let's just go back. As you see this diagram where it says rediscovering under the chief elements, rediscovering the adventure of life and understanding my design and establishing a satisfying life focus. While that diagram stays up there just for a moment, I just want to stop there and say, why did we focus there? Why is the chief elements about rediscovering an adventure in life? What does that mean? Well, I want to do a little inventory and see if you have some of the need that Men's Fraternity 3 seeks to address. And I want to do that by just taking a personal inventory with you for a moment. By asking you some questions, and you just sit there and reflect on this. Do you like where you are? As a man, do you like where you are right now? When you think of yourself as a man, is the future exciting to you? I mean, if we're talking about going on and doing more of the same, is that exciting to you? Or is that something you're saying, no, I kind of want to escape? For some of you guys who start out so strong in your 20s and maybe even into your 30s, and as you went on and even as you succeeded, life just kept saying, okay, you're doing good. And what it kept loading on your pack is just more responsibility. Have you gotten to a place kind of in your mid-years where doing more of what you're doing feels burdensome rather than exciting? There are a lot of guys that get there. That's been the constant refrain, as we'll see in a moment, in human history. Guys get tired midway through life. I like what Ed Seisman says in this statement. He said, men past 40 get up at night, look out at city lights and wonder where they made the wrong turn and why life is so long. Does that strike a chord in you? For some of you guys in midlife? Do you know why you're here? That's a metaphysical question. Do you know why you're here in life? Do you know what you're here for? Is there a sense of calling on your life? Is there a sense of destiny to your life about where you're going? Is there a cause in your life that you're excited about that's bigger than you? Do you have a growing sense that something is dying in you, but you don't know what it is? You can feel it, but you can't express it. But there's just this growing sense that maybe something is missing. Do you know what makes you come alive as a man? Do you know the places where if you go into those, swim into those streams, it's like life becomes exciting again as opposed to deadening? Do you know what those areas are? And finally, are you having fun in life? You know, it seems that guys, after a while, they don't have any fun anymore. They're still doing some of the same recreations, but it just doesn't have the thrill. The thrill is gone. We want to explore what makes a man come alive, what brings adventure to his life, what gives him a sense of destiny and calling. That's what Men's Fraternity 3 is all about. You know, I love the verse in Psalm 90. It says this, teach us to number our days. It's kind of a big picture verse. It's one of those flybys where all of a sudden you can see all of life just for a moment in a verse. Teach us to number our days that we, and I'm going to put we as men, might present to you, God, a heart of wisdom. That when we look over our life, whether we're in our 20s or 30s or 40s, there's kind of a heart of wisdom there. We're glad we get past our 20s and look back and go, I'm glad I did that. We get past our 30s and look back on our 30s and go, I'm glad I did that. And all the way till you finally get to the end of your life and you look back and you go, I'm glad I lived that way. Teach us to number our days, all of them, to live with a big picture in mind, that we may present to thee a heart of wisdom. And then he says, oh, satisfy us that we may sing for joy. And I love the last line because it's so important. And that we as men in this case, that we might be glad all our days. Now, I tell you, when I read a verse like that, I go, that's what I want for my life. So let me tell you, out of that, here's the goal that we have in mind for this year. The goal of this year's Men's Fraternity is just simply this, to help you, and for you younger guys, it's to help stretch you to think out long term in your life. For those of us who are a little bit older, it's to help us rethink kind of where we are and maybe reinvent ourselves a little bit, but it's to help each of us finish this life with personal satisfaction and enter, as we'll talk about later, the next life with confidence. Maybe you hadn't thought about the next life, but we're going to think about it. If we're a real adventurer, we're headed for somewhere, and we're going to finish it sometime. And if your philosophy is that when you're finished, you're done, that's one thing. I'm going to encourage you to think even beyond that, to enter the next life with confidence. Let me give you some assumptions that I'm going to be making, give you 4 assumptions that I'll be making as we go through this time together. Here's the first one. I believe our Creator desires for us to live a meaningful adventure. Our Creator desires for us to live a meaningful adventure. Now, how do I get to that? Well, I open the pages of Scripture. If you open up a Bible and read in Genesis, one of the first things you read is what God said to Adam, the first man. He said, Adam, I want you to be fruitful and multiply, and I want you to subdue the earth. Now, just think about that for a moment. Here's the first man, and how did he start? He didn't start by God saying, now, I've got this little plot of ground, I want you to till it, this little garden. He said to the first man, I want you to subdue the earth. Now let me tell you, that's quite a pill to swallow there. Now that's an adventure. That's global. When Jesus was with his disciples, right before he left, he turned to his disciples and he said, go into all the world. Now, for some guys who had never been much further than the Sea of Galilee, going into all the world was an incredible adventure. And then you've got Jesus himself saying to us, as men, I've come that you might have life and have it what? Tell me. Abundantly, more abundantly. Now, in all of those little snapshots, at least from a spiritual perspective, the word I'd like to extract from that is the word adventure. It was an adventure for Adam. It was an adventure for those fishermen, that tax gatherer who first followed around the Son of God. It's an adventure that Jesus is inviting people into. And what I want to say, I believe that comes from heaven to any man. The shout down to us is, I want you to have an adventure in your life. Secondly, many men, I think, often miss the spirit of adventure. And they miss it sometimes totally in their life, but I think more often others lose it somewhere along life's journey. Life doesn't become an adventure anymore. My father-in-law several years ago gave me his library. He was a history professor. one of the things he gave me were the Harvard Classics, 50 volumes of the great works of Western civilization. And I just began to thumb through some of those books and reading some of the English poets. And one of the things that kept standing out in the English poets was the guys always seemed blue to me. They always were talking about the glories of youth. But there was never any sense of glory in midlife or old age. It's kind of like we're pining away for Friday night football or the baseball diamond or what it was like in the fraternity or when we were kids running around with, our friends and stuff like that making, forts and things like that. But life now at 25, 35 just feels like responsibility. So we always look back. That's what they were doing. And you know what I found? I found as I read a lot of philosophers, they say the same thing. They continually give this warning to men that it's like manhood is a half-life. And then you just brood the second half away. For instance, here's some quotes. Here's Thoreau. You've heard this a million times, haven't you? The mass of men live lives of quiet desperation. That is so discouraging. Or how about this quote from Albert Schweitzer? The tragedy of life is what dies inside a man even as he lives. Or how about this quote from Dante? In the middle of the road of my life, I awoke in a dark wood. In the middle of my life, I kind of woke up and I was in a dark wood and I was wholly lost. Evidently, that is an experience that men have as they navigate through their lives. That somehow when they get to the mid-portion of their life, they begin to, it's like, I've kind of made a life, I've made a living, but I hadn't made a life. I was a big Beatles fan when I grew up in the 60s, and my daughter gave me for Christmas the Beatles' one album, the remake of all their number one hits. And I thought, even those guys kind of sound the alarm a little bit. Because as you follow their little journey along, as you listen to their records, you hear them start out, I want to hold your hand kind of experience of kind of the vitality of, virulent young masculinity. But then as they go on, they get depressed. And then you've got this song. I was driving along the other day and I was just listening to the song, Nowhere Man. Remember Nowhere Man? He's a real nowhere man, living in his nowhere land, making all his nowhere plans for nobody. Doesn't have a point of view, knows not where he's going to. Isn't he a bit like you and me? He's as blind as he can be, knows not what he wants to be. Nowhere man. Can you still see at all? A lot of men live just that way. And if you're a young man, sometimes if you're not clear about where you're going, where you're going to find yourself is at the end of an alley with a big giant brick wall. Men lose their spirit of adventure somewhere along life. Thirdly, here's my assumption. Men need ongoing adventure. They need ongoing adventure. Just ask Michael Jordan. Look at what's happened to Michael. He finished in such a grand style. Would you not have wanted to finish your basketball career with that last shot? But you know what? Sitting around a desk in a corporate office with no vision for your life is not a place for a guy like Michael Jordan. It's not a place for you either, if you don't know where you're going with it. And so what are we going to do? What do men do when they don't know where they're going? They do exactly what Michael Jordan is doing. You want to go where? Back. Back. That's where the adventure was. It's not going to be there. But he's going to try to squeeze one more drop of a little bit of adventure because men were built for adventure. Some of us make an opposite mistake. We go out into life and it is an adventure at the beginning and we try to control it. And after a while, when we tame life, when we get it all tamed, we've got the mortgage under control and the kids under control and the wife under control. All of a sudden we look up and we go, this is no fun. I've played it safe so long that life's no fun anymore. Men need ongoing adventure. And finally, I believe an adventuresome man often lives differently than others who will plod blindly onward. But for him to do that, he will have to make some courageous choices. And he will have to take some courageous chances. And at times, he's going to have to break with conformity. You know what I'd love to do in the course of this year? With the guys who are in this room, there are going to be different ones of you who will have this experience. But it would be great to give some of you men permission to take a chance. To recapture the dream that's within you or a desire that's within you and go for it. Rather than just keep pressing down thinking, someday I'll get there. But the more you press on that, the deader it feels inside the interior of your soul. Some of you need permission to change a job because you were never meant for that job. Some of you need permission to jump out and try something brand new, to take on a new adventure for yourself. Whether it's a hobby or an adventure of some kind, you need to be able to do that. Or come up with a cause that you can live for that's bigger than you. You've got this world mastered, but this is not why you're in this world, just to master this. You were called into a world to contribute. What is that would excite you so that when you think about it, you get tingles? See, I would hope we could give permission to go for it, try it, risk it, step out there. That's what masculinity was made for. So, those are the assumptions. Our Creator desires us to live this meaningful adventure. Men oftentimes miss it. Men desperately need it. But to get there, you're going to have to take some chances, some courageous chances. You're going to have to lead courageously, as we talked about back in Men's Fraternity 1. Not others, but yourself. Yourself. Now, some promises, and we'll be finished, and you can get in your groups. Let me just give you 7 promises I think I can make and deliver on. First, I think you're going to have some great opportunities to do something men oftentimes don't do, and that is think deeply about who you are and where you're going while making some significant personal discoveries in the process. To think deeply about who you are and where you're going, and in that process, make some personal discoveries. Now, I want to give you a warning. It's hard to do that. We're going to be real simple here, because I'm simple. But it's hard to think deeply about who you are. Most of us would rather do what young men do. And here's the way young men go into life. You know, after they finish college or they finish high school. Here's the mode that we go into. And we keep going just like that until we hit a wall. And all I'm saying is that what we want to do for you guys who are young starting out and you guys old who are trying to rethink is we want to get you to go and look up and look around and ask some deep philosophical questions about who you are and what you are and where you really should be going in life, and then to do it. So we're going to give you that opportunity. Ephesians 5 puts it this way: therefore be careful how you walk or how you live your life, not as unwise men, but as wise, making, and this is the key phrase, making the most of your time. Because you've only got a short period of time. It'll be over before you know it. Because it says the days are evil. And what does it mean by the days of evil? It's evil because it will steal away that abundant life that we just mentioned a minute ago. These days are meant to take life from you. It's to bring you to those dead ends. They're evil in that sense. But manhood is more than a half life. Manhood is a full life. But where is it? That's what we want to probe. Secondly, you will have opportunities to interact with other men who can help you think more clearly and objectively about your life. The Proverbs say that's a good thing. Proverbs 27:17 just says, as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. And that's what we need. We need to rub up with other guys who are going through the same experience we are and learn from them and listen to them and let them hear us and reflect back to us what they're hearing from us to help us begin to bring that dream back out, that adventure back out, and learn how we can recapture it for our life or embellish it in some cases. Some of you guys feel like you're on an adventure. You just need to embellish it a little more, polish it. That's why we have small groups. And when Bill comes up here in just a moment and breaks us up, some of you guys aren't going to be in a small group. You're going to need to come down and talk to him about how to get into a small group. The rest of us will break into small groups and answer the questions that are there at the very bottom of your outline. But I want to tell you this, and we've heard it, hadn't we, Bill, every year. The small group experience, I'll try to do a good job every week. But the small group experience will be the most valuable moment of the whole morning. And you don't want to miss that. Thirdly, you will learn how to focus your life using a life focus chart. It's a little tool that I'm going to give you later on in the year that will help you. It's something you can keep in your wallet, but it'll help you rethink your life all the time. It'll give some things for you. It's the simplest thing I can give you. It's the only thing, by the way, I'm going to ask you to do all year. But I'm going to tell you, it's going to be a real challenge for you to do it. And if you have that, if you can begin to craft that, you can begin to put real flesh on your adventure, and you can review it anytime. It's just a very simple little tool. But I'm going to give you that and have you work on it and work with the group on it. So you have something that when you get up in the morning, you could look at that and go, man, that's what I'm going to do. That's where I'm going, and I'm excited about it. Fourthly, you'll develop a personal mission statement that I think helps you define the purpose of your life. And that's quite a challenge in and of itself. You know, there have been times where you may have heard this, but you'll walk through a graveyard and you'll look at these gravestones and you'll see people's names there on those little grave heads where it'll say such, and it'll give his birth and they'll give his death, and then his whole life is what? Just a dash. And there's nothing there. And you're going, well, what was there? And I've thought about that, you know, because I've been thinking about my life, even preparing this. I thought, you know, when somebody walks by my grave plate and they look down, what do I want them to see? So I wrote it out. Here's what I want them to look at. Robert Lewis, 1949, 2000, whenever it's going to be. But in over that dash, mission accomplished. And I want to say, well, what is that? Mission accomplished. I want them to know that as a man, before God, I believe that I could figure out my life and where I'm going, and I could live it in such a way that it would be an adventure, and I would do what I believe my Creator called me to do, as well as how He designed me to be, and it was exciting from start to finish. And let me tell you, it has been. I can offer that with passion. But at the end, I want to be able to look back and say, I've accomplished what I was here for. And it's not just a negative sign. It's mission accomplished. And I'm leaving this life with satisfaction, and I'm moving on to the next life with confidence. Next, you'll gain a better understanding of your unique design and what makes you come alive. In January, Bill Wellens is going to help us walk through a little tool on discovering your design. And we're going to help you go through a process where you discover through what he's going to offer you what excites you about life. You'll be able to finally bring it out and objectify it, and you go, when I'm in these places doing these kind of things, this is me. So we're going to help you get to that and help use that to help you formulate even better how to find places in this world where you can go be that in those places in the world, whatever that means. And let me tell you, that would be exciting, wouldn't it? To know what really excites you, to have that objectified and to use that in those places. And then finally, you'll have the opportunity in many ways to choose your future. Life is a choice, guys. Did you know that? Tom Patterson writes, the greatest tragedy of all is for a man to be managed by circumstances and live a half-dead life. I don't want to be managed by circumstances. I want to be managed by my choices. You know, even the Scriptures appeal to us that life is a choice. When God spoke to the nation Israel, He said, "You see, I've set before you life and death, the blessing and the curse." And then He says, "So choose life that you may live." Life is a choice. You can choose your future to some degree. You can't do it fully, but to some degree, in some many large degrees, you can choose the type of life you're going to have and the adventure you're going to have and the excitement that's going to be there. But there's a process that you have to go through to discover that. And so I want you men to be able to choose life and know that you're choosing life and excited about that. And for some of you young men, for instance, I want you to have a jump start on an exciting first half of life. And if you're between the ages of 20 and 40, I'm going to call you a young man. All right? And give you that jump start. Yeah, there you go. You can clap for yourselves. You sorry group. Because young guys are warriors. And they're busy. And a lot of times they have blind ambition. And if they're not careful, they become over time the dark warrior who does a lot of hurt to themselves and to others. And so it's really good to figure out, what do I need to do, not only to bring my life into orbit with these responsibilities I've been given, but also to do more than just make a living. And that's what I really want to call you young guys to. More than just making a living, making a life. And don't do what so many other men do, is make a living and then try to figure out life in their mid-40s and 50s. You can start doing that now. We want to help you do that. And then for us older men, 40 and up, I want to help you retool for an exciting second half adventure. Because you guys are established. And you've at least mastered or survived the first half of life. I mean, you've got the car and the house and the dog and the kids and responsibilities and debt and a lot of other things. And what I don't want you to do is be crushed under that. But I want you to retool so you can have an exciting life. Because out there is an adventure that can thrill you, can encourage you, can motivate you. Because I want you to be like Abraham. You know what it says of Abraham in Genesis 25? Here's this old man. Makes this one line at the end of his life. It says, "And Abraham died," and then it adds this statement, "satisfied with life." Wouldn't you like to be Abraham at that moment? What an adventure he had. As a young guy in Ur, big businessman, successful, and then God calls him to His design. He says, "Abraham, leave all this and go to a land that I'll tell you about later when you're on the journey." Man, that took courage. But it started Abraham on an adventure that was more than just making a living. It started him on an adventure that made a life. And it was rugged and it was challenging, and there were times he failed, but at the end of his life he could look back over and say, "I'm satisfied." I covet that for every guy here. That you would be thrilled with your life. Choosing your future is what we want to explore and probe and grapple with in the year that's ahead of us. We want you to have an adventure. Let me close with a statement from John Eldredge in the book Wild at Heart that we gave away. He says this: "Adventure with all its requisite danger and wildness is a deeply spiritual longing written into the soul of man. The masculine heart needs a place where nothing is prefabricated, modular, non-fat, zip-locked, franchised, online, or microwavable. Where there are no deadlines, cell phones, or committee meetings, just simply where there is room for the soul. Where finally the geography around us corresponds to the geography of our heart. Deep in a man's heart are some fundamental questions that simply cannot be answered at the kitchen table. Who am I? What am I made of? What am I destined for? It is fear that keeps a man at home, where things are neat and orderly and under his control. But the answers to his deepest questions are not to be found on television or at a ball game or in the refrigerator. These answers require a courageous adventurer whose quest is nothing less than the best of life. This is what Men's Fraternity 3 is going to be all about.
Thank you for listening to this week's message. It really helps us when you rate and review this podcast. If you found today's teaching helpful, take time to do that today. This podcast was produced by the team at Sound of a Rose. Visit soundofarose.com for any of your podcasting needs.